Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to the No Fatwas Given podcast, episode 15. Alhamdulillah. We're trying to keep it as consistent as possible. I'm your host, Saad, and I'm joined by my co host, Fahad. Um, just the two of us this time, and we had a slightly different setting. We got a laptop so we can look stuff up as we go along, and we'll kind of go from there. First topic, we'll always start with politics. This time, I don't want to talk politics much. I feel like nothing's changed much. Unfortunately, the Gaza situation almost is what it is. There's some stuff related to the ceasefire, or a pseudo ceasefire, whatever you want to call it. But not much has changed there, and I don't have much to say about that, at least at this point.
I mean, if something major always happens, we'll probably discuss it. But
yeah, but there's nothing. I mean, there's some stuff about the prisoner swap. There was this one lady, and whether it was a baby or not, there's all this drama about that. But honestly, it's frivolous, same old BS stuff, IDF propaganda. So I don't want to talk about that. The only other political news I feel like talking about is, Trump, DOGE. Everyone's like, Elon's a real president, all this kind of stuff. And there's a lot of recent pushback from the Democrats that they're going to give Elon Musk's DOGE the ability to look into everyone else, IRS records and things of that nature, people's personal records that the government has. And they're like, that's ridiculous. There's too much power, yada yada yada. And so,
yeah, there was some guy at the local mosque we were at, and he was talking about how he has a government job, and how they got sent an email from essentially DOGE requiring an update onto how they're spending their money.
not just money, but time. So so basically, this was important too. So he sent out an email. So Elon Musk sent out an email to all federal employees.
Yeah.
All federal employees saying that they have like a week, 10 days or something to report back by email.
That's what it was.
What they've done over the past week. Okay. And if they don't reply with what they've done over the past week, then that is considered an automatic resignation. And so now many departments, and I read a lot about this, many departments were telling their people initially, go ahead, this looks like it's legit, respond, okay? And then these unions and stuff, they finally got together, people are like, what the heck is going on? And they're like, okay, it's real, but you know what? We're gonna give a united response. Do not respond to this.
You know what this reminds me of, right?
Yeah.
What does it remind you of? Elon did this before as well, by the way.
He did it to Twitter.
He sent an email out to everybody on Twitter. And he wanted everybody else to tell him what's so important about the role.
Yeah, what's their utility?
Yeah,
exactly.
And I remember there's one famous guy on Twitter, and he kind of responded like, "Why do you care?" Something like that. And I think he got fired.
Yeah, he got fired.
Yeah, he got fired.
He got fired.
And essentially, he's doing the same thing, but just at the government level, saying, "Show me essentially the last week of stuff that you've done.
That's very useful.
That's very useful."
Yeah, and look, this is what I say about Elon Musk. I don't think he's a messiah, right? I heard the conversation between Candace Owens and it was Piers Morgan, and Piers Morgan said, "I think he's a wonderful man. I think he's going to save humanity or whatever." Look,
it's nonsense.
Nonsense. He ain't no messiah. He's not special in that regard. But, and you cannot deny this, and only a fool would at this point, regardless of what his personality is, how bombastic he is, how unfiltered and stupid he sounds on Twitter sometimes. Forget all that. Just put it aside for a second. As a CEO. There's no doubt, and you can say there's this reason, that reason, Illuminati reasons, whatever. There's no doubt this man brought several companies, whether it was PayPal, whether it was Tesla, whether it was SpaceX, whether it is Twitter. He took these companies,
made them profitable,
made them extremely profitable, and he's the richest man in the world. And Twitter, he got so much backlash for Twitter, and you can say he sold himself to his Jewish overlords to get Twitter working, whatever it is, right? I don't care how he got there. Point is, he bought Twitter for what, $54 billion or whatever it was. And then immediately people said, oh, he's not censoring content the way we expect him to. We don't want our ads next to BS content. And he get all the advertisers pulled out. And he of course, he goes on stage, flips everyone off and says, F you, I don't need your advertising funds. And then later he realizes it kind of does. But point is, he got Twitter to a space where it is today, where it is, I would say, quite successful.
I mean, he starts selling the blue check mark.
And look, it worked. And people laughed at him, and now so many people are paying for the blue check marks. And here's the thing: he did that the same way he's going to do it. So there's no doubt that if this man is running an efficient, so the first thing he did at Twitter is to make it efficient. He fired 60%, like something insane, like half the workforce at Twitter, and Twitter continued to function. Had very little downtime. Sure, there was some content moderation things that could have happened that weren't happening. A lot more bots. Look, There were some growing pains when someone takes over a $1 billion, company, but he made it and he did it, and I would say he was successful at it. And to say that he can't do the same with the government is different, and you can't just fire people. And when Social Security goes out the window, people will suffer. There will be homelessness. It's not the same effect as firing a Silicon Valley engineer. I agree with that, but I also don't think he's just gonna fire people. I hope he doesn't fire
But
people.
this is more accountability than I've ever seen the government be held to, right? It's like there's so many news articles of cities giving themselves a lot of bonuses, huge paychecks, and get it voted through and passed through, and then you see their like meteoric rise of how much income they're getting. Like, it's ridiculous. For him to get to a federal level and say, "Show me why we need you," it is fantastic. The government should not be bloated.
Yeah, 100%. And we know when it comes to government funding, and I'll give a really brief example. And I've seen this. I'm not going to give the exact example because it's happening currently, but when it comes to, let's say, aid, right? So there's, impoverished groups, whatever it is, suddenly the government will give an aid package to, whoever this group is, whether it be Latino community, the Black community, whatever it is. And they'll come out and they'll do this. And offering these aid packages, you'll see, like, what do these people need? They need homes, they need education, they need that kind of support, maybe healthcare. But typically, these aid packages, it's more like cheerleading support. We're here to teach you how to get a job. We're here to teach you how to protect. It's not actually solving any problems. Like, it's not actually providing people homes. Some aspect of this is good. Teach a man to fish. They won't go hungry a single day. Give a man a fish, he'll only be fed for a day. I get it, but you know, point is, there's a lot of wasteful spending.
There's a lot of wasteful spending.
Waste in government. And if someone's coming down and starts cracking down, I think that's generally a good thing. On the other hand, I should say, I was reading some articles about this, where the last time there was a surplus in the national budget was during the Clinton era. And there was, I can't remember, one of the advisors to Clinton, I can't remember what role they specifically held, something in economics. They mentioned that, look, hey, we did this in Clinton's era. We came in, we cut down a lot of spending, frivolous spending, stuff like that. But there was a procedure to do this, because when it comes to government, you can't run a government like a company. It is different. People's lives are in the balance, right? When you fire 30% of the Twitter workforce, those people probably weren't going hungry the next day, right? But if you suddenly cut back a lot of Social Security, whatever spending, there's people whose entire livelihood depends on the Social Security check.
Yeah, but like that's not the case, right? Like Elon, he reduced the workforce of Twitter by I don't know how much, 80%. He said
Something insane.
something insane. But Twitter, at least to me as an end user, functions exactly the same way. In fact, I see more features now. Ever since he took over, I see Grok, community notes, some other like blue check mark. These were all implemented afterwards. Yet the workforce was cut down by 80%, right? So I have no doubt that a lot of these things in the government, such as Social Security, can function without the bloat. The government 100% is bloated. Now, you have to find the bloat. Maybe at some points you might cut a bit too much, but that's fine. You didn't rehire.
Yeah.
Right? But that is the very reason why companies have a cyclical kind of like layoffs cycle. What they do is they get to a certain point of growth, and then they cut down. And then you might see as soon as they cut down, they start rehiring. This happens all the time. Even at the companies I work for, you see like these random layoffs, and then a quarter later, that spot's being refilled. Why cut it off in the first place? But they do this as a way to continuously slim down the company, because if you don't do it, the company will just start to bloat, because every single department, all they want is to get a new paycheck that's larger than the previous paycheck, get new requisitions that they have more space than the last requisitions, right? This is a way to slim it back down so it can grow naturally again. Slim it back down again, grow naturally.
You know what's interesting? I was talking to actually Naim Khado about this, so one of our uncles, and he was saying the same thing. He said when it comes to companies, and he knew this really well because he had been working in these large companies. He was in upper management for a long time in Pakistan, and so he's like, look, in every company, there's a time of rapid growth. You spend, kind of beyond your means almost. You expand, and then you, for a while, it could be a couple of years even, you just pull back. You pull back, you become efficient where you grew to. So that means firing people, you become efficient, and then you're like, okay, now we've hit maximum or near peak efficiency at the level we're at the revenue we're at, and then boom, you expand again. So the expansion, and then there's kind of, you kind of reconcile, and then you expand, and then you pull back. So I think we see this in every company, like you said, they'll fire, and then they rehire in that same position. It actually brings us to kind of in your world, right? In the tech world, let's talk about that. Actually, I find that very interesting. Where there's a lot of layoffs happening, a lot of this stuff happening, whether it's at Facebook, Apple, name it, right? Almost every company. Although Apple is planning on spending 500 billion and hiring 20,000 more people. I just read that today.
But
But
even DoorDash has some rapid growth, and then they have some rapid firing, right?
yeah,
There's a lot of companies that have rapid growth, rapid firing, but it is very much because a lot of times you get hired for a certain role, and then after a year or 2 or 3 years, that that need was fulfilled, right? And now maybe the direction has changed. Just because the company's direction has changed doesn't mean that's a bad thing. That's where the company needs to go. Now, everybody else might no longer have a role anymore because you no longer fit that direction. Same thing, like I remember at Microsoft, one of our cousins, at some point, the meta space, VR, that was the biggest thing. They had a serious gaming division of creating, even for like military or even like virtualizations for like scientific models of like the full model of the Earth.
they had
Right.
HoloLens and stuff.
The HoloLens, they had a full model of the Earth with physics, everything. So ideally, you can train anything on it. You could do experiments on it. Military, you can run operations on it. All kinds of things you could pretty much run on that thing, right? And it was a meta verse kind of a team, huge team build. Well, they quickly realized, Microsoft realized secretly, because actually my cousin was shown a very early model of ChatGPT, our cousin, and they realized very quickly that, hey, this is the future. The public didn't know it yet, but Microsoft realized, because they were investing in OpenAI, that this is the future. And so they cut this entire team because they have to be lean and they have to go where the company needs to go. And so there's this constant hiring and firing and then rehiring. Sometimes they overslim in certain areas, which is fine, and they just rehire those roles back.
And I bet this happens very frequently on Google, considering how many entire products they just
X.
overnight. Stadia was actually doing well. Kind of weird stuff like that. But yeah, that's interesting, and that brings us to the other thing you were mentioning right before we started the podcast. Is now in the tech world. Speaking of the tech world, is junior. So I have a computer science. So I'm in medicine, but I have a computer science background, computer science. And so in the tech world today, especially, and this has been talked about, is with the advent of good LLMs such as ChatGPT, Llama, DeepSeek now, Claude, right? The need for junior developers having just the accolade that, hey, I can code, isn't enough anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you have stuff like our father. He went on Replit, Muslim owner, by the way, and he wanted to make an app that can kind of track prayers, right?
Sujood.
Like as sujood.
How many rak'ah
how many
you've done in
times you
case
go
you
down
forget.
and up, right?
Yeah.
So he zero code knowledge. He kind of went up. He's used to ChatGPT now. At this point, he talks to it pretty much every single day. He does a lot for him. Makes his Twitter posts. So he went ahead, talked to it, and slowly iterated until he got a sort of working app. And this is somebody who's, I don't know how old he is now.
Late 60s.
Late 60s, zero programming knowledge. I mean, you've done a CS even. Zero programming knowledge. He was able to make a semi-functioning app, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And which brings me to, especially these latest elements, Claude 3.7 just released, which is a reasoning. And I just tried it today. It is fantastic.
It's pretty good. You know, I've tested a lot. We can talk about it a bit more later, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's fantastic. Like
Yeah.
you're making things right now.
I've made so many. I mean, I've been using ever since, ChatGPT. I would say ChatGPT 3. I started using ChatGPT a bit, but once 4.0 came out, I used it a lot more for coding.
You subscribe to it?
Yeah, I'm a subscriber. I'm a GPT Plus whatever member, and then recently Cursor. Sohaib, our third brother here, who's typically here, not here today, he's like, you gotta check out Cursor. I checked out Cursor several months ago. I wasn't a huge fan because I'm like, what does this offer over VS Code and using a chatbot on the side, right? I'm already paying for GPT Plus on the side. I just have a separate monitor with, my ChatGPT open on it, ask the questions, copy paste some code. Everything looks pretty good, not a big deal. But Cursor, especially when you're dealing with larger apps, right? I mean, if I'm doing small scripting, sure, you can copy paste large amounts of stuff, not a big deal. But once you're working with some code bases, maybe 30, 40 files you're kind of working with, right? Having Cursor do inline edits on the fly, and now it does it extremely well across the board. And the best part is this: I realized there's not even Claude 3.7, the thinking model. Across the board, every model is it just approaches problems differently. So I'll be having an issue, and I'll ask DeepSeek R1. and it's thinking for 50 minutes, still doesn't get it right somehow.
Yeah,
And
DeepSeek. I'm not really impressed by it.
yeah, actually, DeepSeek R1's pretty good. It's really good for, I would say, when you're making sweeping changes or something like that actually requires deep reasoning. I think it does a phenomenal job. R1, excellent, excellent, excellent. But for simple things like you have some lint error that you're like, fix it. Don't ask R1 for that. For simple linting errors, go ask like 4.0 mini or something really, or like Claude Haiku, right? Something like that. I think
Claude
that
Haiku.
yeah, it's like 3.5 Haiku. It's like a mini model. It's like I don't know, 4.0
But why is
versus
that one
4.0
better?
reasoning. Nothing. It doesn't do any crazy thinking. It just looks at the limit error. Okay, this error is from this. Looking at your script, it looks like,
It's
oh,
not.
this is an unused import. Just erase it. I mean, the whole thinking model goes to this big tangent. Okay, it's unused import, but is it really unused
Yeah,
import?
yeah.
And it's just looking
I
at random crap that are.
I've noticed that reasoning models, even though it's a simple change, they're editing way more than they need to.
It starts doing. Actually, I completely wrecked my app and had to kind of remake it because in order to fix one problem, it did this deep think because I gave it the whole code base because I thought it needed a
No,
couple more
but you
files.
always commit. That's why you never like. If you just keep committing code, even a little bit at a time, you won't get the
I
problem.
did, but I didn't realize the sweeping changes it made until I had iterated far too much
Oh
on the
no,
one
that's
problem I was
the
at.
problem.
That was my problem. I should have looked and I'm like, wait, where's all that data?
And
Why
you
is this
should,
page
and
not working?
you should somewhat read what it made the changes.
I was really tired and
Yeah, I know.
I
It's a
was like,
problem.
whatever, just fix.
But
Yeah.
the point is that these models are so quick. Like I've had like these small ideas for a while. I've rapidly made a lot of these ideas. Right? He's making MTG.
Yeah, an a card optimizer. We'll see.
Yeah, we just got into MTG. Well, he did more than me, but he is making a
Should play
card
more.
optimizer. We're making a USMLE test bank, and making other projects on the side that I've been always asked to make. And again, these things I can put them out in like a day or two, right?
And for an experienced coder, I bet that's the case. For me
Yeah.
to like get something to deployment takes a bit more like finagling. But I can make pretty robust applications. Okay, I do have a computer science background. And I'd say theoretically, this is if I'm to judge my coding skill, it's poor. I mean, if you told me if I was in a coding interview today and someone said, code this in whatever language you're familiar with, it would be a mess because I can't recall the syntax off the top of my head. Wait, is it semicolon, colon? What is the syntax for loop again? What about this for loop? How do you iterate through this? I can't remember. But if you ask me to type and to do pseudocode for any algorithmic problem, I could probably give you a solution, a quick solution, and then a more efficient solution, whether it's for time or space or whatever. So theoretically, my theoretical knowledge I would say is decent. My practical knowledge is poor, and that's where coding. See, from someone like me, I would say who has a good general idea of how coding should work, working with an AI LLM is beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful, super efficient. It literally fills all the gaps in my knowledge.
So, which brings us to the point. If people like my dad and people who haven't coded in a while, our cousin who's a doctor, Sohaib, and he can code and he can make MVPs, the question comes, what is this doing to the tech industry? Basically, anybody who got a computer science degree recently, they're not getting jobs. They're just not getting jobs because at the end of the day, companies have realized that in the future they won't need junior devs, right? They need people who understand the entire code base. Even when I use LLMs right now, I'm a bit more efficient because I can direct it very specifically to what it needs to change. And when it does change something that it shouldn't change, I could revert that code and either try again or manually fix the issues, right? If I need to. But junior devs won't be able to do that. Junior devs will just change massive amounts of code unnecessarily, right? And so then they won't be good enough at using the NLM properly, and then they'll resort to doing it manually, and we don't need their manual work because they operate at such a small scale. AI can do that work for us. So which just brings us to a point like, how do you get into the tech industry at this point? I always wonder. We have a lot of like younger cousins who, unfortunately, they graduated exactly when this boom happened, and they still haven't got jobs.
Yes. And I would say there's other cousins of ours who there's some people I would say like yourself and the older cousin we talked about who I feel even if they graduated during this boom, they're savvy enough to have been successful.
Sure, because we were really into it, right?
Yeah, meaning it wasn't just
A career
for a
path.
career
Yeah.
or a job or just to pay the bills. It was also a passion to some degree, a hobby. And for most of our younger cousins, it was like, well, we like playing video games, and
This
now
pays
I
well.
guess we need jobs, and this pays well, so computer science. And now they're not very much into it. They don't know how to really code. Honestly, they can't even really code. So you're talking about junior coders whose single asset is, hey, I can code. They can't even do that, and they're trying to like get these jobs, and it's a hard sell.
Yeah, pretty much. I would say I would recommend then if you want to get a job at this point, you really, really need to know how to code, like extremely well. Like you have to make Twitter clones to perfection, right? And sure, you could use AI to help you along the way, but you really need to understand that code base completely, uh, back end, front end, everything in the middle. AI, right? If you are really, really good at what you do, basically you're a senior level
Mhm.
without the experience. That's essentially it.
And I'd say interning could help too. Because, for example, what I did very recently, in fact, just this morning, I video called him, shared my screen, and said, I was working on this app, and I'm like, okay, so I'm working on this Next.js app. How do I structure things correctly? And he kind of is like, no, this shouldn't be there. This file should actually be here. This is a better way to arrange components and routing and so on and so forth. And I'm like, fantastic. Simple thing. I had already, by the way, most of what he told me I had already figured out just by looking at a code base we're both working on together and just asking AI some questions. So I had already, as soon as he mentioned it, I'm like, okay, got it. That all makes sense. He asked me questions and I was able to answer them because I knew to some degree what the heck I was doing. And but I think that's the thing where I think if you are work on your own projects, like you said, make your own Twitter and make a very robust Twitter, so that you can show projects. I remember when you were first applying for jobs and stuff, same thing. You have a profile kind of on GitHub, and you show these are all the projects I've made and remaking. It's not like you have to come up with some novel
I
ideas.
made Goodreads.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
exactly.
remember I made Goodreads
Yeah,
as one of my
remake
personal.
something
Yeah,
and show that you can remake it from scratch and be like, look, I took Twitter and I remade Twitter. It's fully functioning. You can log in. It has tweets. It has stats. Whatever it has to do. Maybe even has some verification thing. Whatever. Like, show that you can build something that these people would, and I think that may help.
yeah. I mean, it's gonna be tough. Either way, you probably need a recommendation from somewhere. The job market is extremely difficult. Senior devs are looking for jobs, and that's who they want to hire. They're not gonna hire somebody with like very little experience. So you pretty much need to bootstrap yourself. Do a startup at this point. I mean, you could code anything. If you're that young, money problems are not as big of a deal. Probably skip the 4 year degree if you really need to. Like if you could probably start this by yourself really early on and get some traction. Do a 4 year degree in something else, like maybe like honestly, if you're gonna do a degree, do something else.
Not for CS. Okay, there's many
Not for
things.
this
There's things that degrees are helpful for. Computer science,
is no
honestly,
longer.
is not one of them, and especially now is no longer one of them.
Yeah, there's no need.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I was one of my first jobs at Intuit. The My new manager, he was acquired his company. I forgot his name was Benny Joseph, I think. Interesting guy. But he actually came and he was telling me like really frankly, because I told him like, hey, I actually I'm a pre med guy. He's CS, I'm pre med technically, and I went to computer science. But and I said I'm doing a master's on the side. He said, oh, you don't need a degree. I don't have a degree. I got acquired, and I'm your boss. Like there's no need. I'm gonna go even further. He said most people don't. Like a lot of people don't need degrees, and that was the case. I remember one of the guys we hired. He kind of went to a boot camp, and before that he was a construction worker. But it's fine.
Yeah.
Coding is like a skill like fishing.
Yeah.
You could just do a mentorship program and learn how to do it, and then that's it.
And we mentioned this last time at the Olive conference. We met this 17 or 9, he was 21-year-old gentleman, but when he was 17 years old, at this point he knew decent coding. He found a GitHub repo about something really cool. He thought he could turn it into a product. He did, and he sold it for $1 million plus. So that is that that's what you can do, and especially with AI today. This kid looks like he was. I mean, 4 or 5 years ago, I don't think LLMs were there, so clearly he had good coding prowess, even as a 17-year-old. But today, if my father in his 60s with zero coding knowledge can create a functional prototype, then you, who's gone through at least one CS course, can do much better.
I mean, that's
For
what.
sure.
By the way, we both have kids. My goal is to teach them how to type as fast as possible, and then get them on some kind of coding because they have way more time. Like we had a lot of time with kids, right? If we can somehow train them to actually develop
Yeah.
and like make apps, it's not like their life doesn't really depend on it, right? So they're a lot more free to make these like interesting
Right.
choices, right? And it'll be great for them.
It actually want to do, Suhaib mentioned this, and I think we should do this. And it's just a cool idea in general. I'm gonna throw it out there because it's just fun to think about. Is like do a coding challenge for all our kids, and maybe we can enter too, where they kind of do. There's like a learned coding type thing for a few months, and then at the end it'll be a prize funded by the fathers, you, me, and whoever else in the extended family who wants to. We get a big prize together, like a legit prize, maybe a fully decked out PC with a 5090 and all the things, like have like a $3,000-$4,000 PC. I mean, people pull in for this, and you tell the kids, hey, you want this jackpot? Not only learn coding, but build something awesome,
Yeah.
worthy of that prize, and beat out your competition. And I think doing this over the summer is going to be like amazing.
I think as our kids get older, like a yearly hackathon, 100%.
Dude, and I think we should get on it too. Why can't we compete against them? I'm not saying, look, I might compete against them, and
why not?
Just for fun. And look, I'm not going to take the prize because I'm freaking funding it. But I'll spur them on and be like, oh, they create this, and maybe they'll beat me, right? It's all about the right idea, because at this point, AI codes so much for you. Whoever has the best idea can often, win.
Yeah, the cool thing is with AI, they need to learn enough how to code and how to iterate and how to make a good product.
Yeah, but when they're first learning, there has to be no AI. They got to learn the ins and outs of coding without any AI use, of course. What all that means, and then
jump on.
And then they can jump on AI and help them. But they got to code an entire tic-tac-toe app, whatever it is, some basic app, completely from scratch, except using API and docs online. That's it. That's their only help, and they should make something. But I think that'd be really cool. We should really do that. I think people out there should do that too within their families if you have kids. Coding right now, it's just another thing. I was thinking this as you were talking about junior developers and where things are going. I feel right now we're in a lull, meaning people don't know how to use AI. I think it's rapidly becoming clear that AI is actually a lot more powerful than we thought, and getting more powerful very fast.
Every single time one of these new models comes out, this, at least for me, because I have a lot of dev videos, a lot of dev videos show up. Will Claude 3.7 make engineers extinct? And then these guys test it. Like Fireship, if you know Fireship, I watch his videos, and he's kind of funny guy. But like they kind of assess these things and see how far it is. But essentially, for now, it's 100% clear junior developers are extinct.
But I feel they may come back. That's what I'm saying. I was gonna end with, I think there's a lull, but I think because AI allows people to be more efficient and now anyone can code, I think there'll be more startups. I think there'll be more companies. I think there'll be now people able to create a lot more AI assisted products for the people. So I think while demand at these larger companies may go down because they're able to attract so many senior developers, I think a lot of these startups are going to want junior developers who use AI.
So my thing is, will the AI boom increase the amount of people who want to get into computer science or decrease it? Because right now, at least the people who are recently graduated, they're like, oh, we made a mistake. Okay, we made a mistake. Now, does this sentiment last? I don't know. But if there is a boom where everybody's a developer, well, engineering salaries will go down.
Yeah.
Right? If a bunch of companies start popping up, everybody's competing with likes of Google because we can code, we can iterate extremely quickly. The edge that these companies had, where they had these massive teams and it took a while for somebody else to catch up to them, that's gone, because you can make a Twitter clone with AI very quickly right now, in a couple of days probably, and make a reasonable clone.
And to find bugs, I want to say those little things.
Yeah.
Like I remember this old school thing where Mozilla Firefox notoriously had a memory leak.
Yes.
Somewhere in their code. And they did all these things, and as computers got faster, it became a little bit less noticeable. But if you left the browser on too long, at some point they revamped the whole thing, but if you left the browser on too long, it would slow down, clunk everything down, you'd have to just close it and restart it. That was the only way to fix the leak.
Yeah.
And I bet if they had, and even ChatGPT 4, forget these reasoning models, if they had ChatGPT 4.0, fed it file by file, it could tell them exactly where that memory leak
Potentially,
was.
Yeah. Potentially. The thing is, like stuff like at work, writing unit tests, right? These things can do a pretty excellent job if you can feed them the relevant parts of the code.
That's another thing I realized. The more accurate you are in your instructions, the less data you give them, meaning don't give them the whole code base every time you want it to fix a simple lint error, right? Don't give them the whole code base. Give them the one file. Oh, you need 3 files? Give them the 3 files, right? Give them the back end, front end if it's related problem, right? So it knows what's going on. Just give it these 2 files, and then give it very clear instructions. And this is where having know-how helps. Being a senior developer like yourself, it helps a lot where you can be, you know what, I want you to do this, and you know what, I want you to do it this way.
Yeah, because once you get to the higher levels, companies have a certain way of doing things, right? There's coding standards, best practices, stuff that we want to use. Sometimes if you use these things, they just make you download a new library to do things. It's ridiculous. We don't want to bloat our entire thing with new libraries, right?
I'm having this issue now.
So you essentially need to really direct it. And that's the thing. It could write these unit tests if you really give it the context. In our small code bases for small projects, yeah, we could write hashtag code base or whatever it is. Give the whole code base is fine. These large projects at companies, you can't give them the entire code base.
Impossible.
Right? Even then, like the AI would probably search through it, find the relevant text and stuff, but there might be a lot of common text. We have a lot of duplicate components in the huge code base named the same exact thing, right? They're just different files and we kind of understand what they're both used for. But there's a lot of duplicates everywhere in the thing. So yeah, there's a lot of things you could do, but once you get the code gets large and large, you really do need senior developers.
Yeah, the future's uncertain. I would say that, but I am optimistic. I feel that even these young guys who just graduated, I think they'll find jobs.
They can find jobs
eventually. I think they will.
But they need to get better at it. They can't be junior devs applying. They have to be senior devs with no experience.
Yes.
Yeah. But okay, so the other topic that I want to talk about was kind of like this piracy thing.
Llama. Yeah.
Yeah, Meta just got sued or something by that they basically found that they downloaded 81.7 terabytes of data, like of books, right? Of copyrighted books.
Yeah, they pirated books to train
their model
on Llama, basically.
Yeah. And so there is a weird thing about that. And the reason I'll tell you it's kind of weird because I had this, I was recently interviewing at a place, and one of the engineers there, he said, basically when these LLMs first came out, and they first learned how to code, he said, I asked it to build one of my projects that I built a while back. I open sourced it. It was on GitHub for a long time. But I wanted to recreate that. So I fed it this nice prompt and recreate that. I just want to see how well it does it. Does it do it the way I did it? Smaller project, but it's unique to him. He said, I made it. It had some downloads or whatever. And so he asked it to make that project again. He said, the code that it spit out, I recognize as my own code. He said, the reason why is because I like to name variables a certain way, and sometimes I put Easter eggs in them.
Easter eggs included, huh?
He said he put Easter eggs in variables. He's been working at this company for a long time, even the current company he's working at. And he said, it's just my thing. He's an older guy, much older guy. He's like, I don't know, he must be at least like 10 years old. I don't know how much older, but he's quite a bit older guy. And he says, it's just my thing. I like to put in Easter eggs. I just like to name my variables in a weird manner.
People enjoy
certain things. I've seen that. And he says the code that it gave me back had some of that in it. And I was like, okay, this is basically reading my code and giving it back to me, right? Because it was Copilot. Right. Microsoft owns GitHub.
Which reminds me a lot of, actually, MKBHD was testing out Sora. He said, give me a video of a black tech tuber doing this thing.
No, he didn't say black.
He didn't say black?
No.
I think he did.
He did?
After or something. I think he did, because it eventually showed
his exact pot.
His exact pot.
His exact pot.
Because if you look, he is the tech tuber, right? So when it's trying to emulate a tech tuber video, it's going to show his freaking pot because it's in like half his videos, right?
Because these people put a lot of content out, right? Yeah. So MKBHD has more content than other YouTubers. Therefore, the model is trained on him more than every other person, and then therefore you get that same exact plant.
Yeah.
And other people watch MKBHD and they also buy that plant. So now you have multiple YouTubers having the same plant, and so that will ramp out. But it's same thing. While Meta is basically fighting that it's not illegal,
which is really funny
because they are not selling, or
they're not the ones sharing.
They're not sharing the books.
Basically, someone else shared the books with them, and getting pirated content.
No, it's not about sharing. It's not even sharing.
No, it's sharing, because they said basically we didn't seed. They're saying we torrented the books, we downloaded from others, but we did not share. Basically, seed. If you know how torrenting works, there's leechers and seeders. Leechers are people who download.
That's legal.
Seeders are people who are seeding.
And that's upload. Yeah.
And that is wrong. And so typically, and I know this to be a fact, by the way, is that when you get a copyright like DMCA claim, like Millennium Act claim, whatever, from your internet provider, it's usually because you seeded some content, some content you shouldn't have, right? If you don't see it, you don't get it. Now, typically, most these trackers and whatnot, they don't let you download unless you're seeding, or they start limiting your downloading potential if you're not seeding. Um, but anyway, and so Meta, and I read articles on this, basically like saying, pirate basically to torrent is illegal unless you're rich enough to fight it. Basically, because you and I, if we made the claim, well, we didn't seed it, we just downloaded it, we'd still get sued to kingdom come. But Meta will probably look at a slap on the wrist, but they got llama out of it, so they don't give a crap.
No, I mean that's the thing. Like Napster, if anybody knows them, he did a long time ago. But Napster, the reason it went down is not because they were, downloading stuff. It was because of the sharing. Sharing music was the illegal part. You could download whatever you want. Sharing is the problem.
Yeah.
And so what Meta is claiming is, look, we're just downloading. We're not sharing, and we're not technically distributing either. This illegal stuff. Yes, it's copyrighted. We never bought a single copy of this. We just downloaded it. But that's the thing. Government-wise, what they did was not illegal.
Technically.
So us pirating, the word pirating has a negative connotation. But technically, pirating stuff is not illegal.
Sharing it back.
Sharing it back is illegal.
Don't distribute this. Fine. I obtained pirated content.
That's
no
fine.
Big deal. Now I'm sharing pirated content. Illegal. Right? That's apparently seems to
But
be
it
the case.
is strange because you are literally downloading it from somebody who's giving it illegally.
Yeah, but see, when it comes to torrents, there is randomization here. It's not like I'm meeting someone. It's not like someone stole the Mona Lisa from the Louvre or whatever, right? And then I meet them in the parking lot and buy it, and so they're redistributing. No. It's like this is one is digital content. It's a photo of the Mona Lisa, okay, per se. Okay?
Sure, whatever it is, yeah.
And they're just making copies and sending it to other people. That's basically it. That part's illegal. But me to obtain a photo of the Mona Lisa, even if it's copyrighted, I can have that. Technically not illegal. I'm sure if this goes to court, something's going to come out of this, and even having pirated content would be considered illegal. So,
I mean, it is lobbyist group. If this gets really bad, there's lobbyists, but there's probably not a major book like lobbying group in that sense. Maybe for like textbooks and stuff like that. But even then, but the same thing is the thing is that what comes back down is the same guy who was coding, right? He said he asked it to give me a prompt and it gave back his code. So what's to say that people can't get around Meta's kind of prompt fine tuning, where they could get text from copyrighted books, straight up text from copyrighted books, right? It does try to block it. If it recognizes that you are doing something that should be copyrightable, it won't give it to you. In fact, for like the Sora and stuff, you can't tell it to make, or like you can't make images
of people,
like Donald Trump and stuff. It won't do it.
Yeah, it won't.
You kind of have to go around it by saying like, orange hair president.
But actually, it's even good at knowledge. So basically, if you try to get, I can't remember even the actor's name, but whatever. Let's say, hey, give me a picture of Thor, and I'm looking for the Thor who's an actor in the movies, but I can't remember his name for the life of me. Australian guy, Chris Hemsworth, correct? So Chris Hemsworth. So now, if you ask her, hey, give me a photo of Chris Hemsworth, no, give me a photo of Thor, because Thor's Chris Hemsworth. It still gives you some pseudo version of that. It doesn't, because it knows you're trying to get at, or like, hey, give me a photo of whatever his name is, Ian McKellen, whatever his name is, or give me Gandalf.
Give me a photo of Thor as a regular, normal civilian. It's like,
yeah, exactly. I bet there's ways around it, but it's very clear that it was copying this from the get-go. Because, for example, if you wanted to quote you any book, like for example Harry Potter, you had to buy it. Yeah. No matter what, you still got to buy Harry Potter. It's not on copyright. But if you tell it, hey, can you give me the first paragraph from Harry Potter or something? It will start and it'll be like, oh, no, this content is not part of our policy, which means it knows the first paragraph. It doesn't have to Google this. It just knows it, right? I'm not doing the search function on GPT. I'm just asking ChatGPT, give me the first paragraph of the Harry Potter
book. I wonder now if you could say, like, write this like the author of Harry Potter would write it. It's not necessarily Harry Potter's content, but like the author of it. If it has all these books, which 81.7 terabytes, it probably has Harry Potter in its database. It would be amazing to see if like you could just output this kind of stuff. But like that is the case, right? What is digitally, what is safe? It doesn't seem like anything's safe. These companies are getting everything, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the reasons I believe Microsoft went for GitHub, is because at the end they understood the LLM thing pretty early on, that they were getting this breakthrough.
That makes sense. If you
Yeah.
said they had a version of ChatGPT,
They had
or
a version of it and they understood where it could be. So they got GitHub and they are training on all the repositories. In fact, when that happened initially, I remember a lot of major companies pulled themselves off of GitHub. They left GitHub because Microsoft, they're a competitor. Google won't be on GitHub now because
yeah,
Microsoft doesn't read their code,
yeah.
right?
I bet they have access to even the private ones.
Yeah, I don't know because
I bet you. But which we should test. If someone has a private repo, they've had private for let's say many years.
Because if I don't think they would, because enterprise GitHubs is locally hosted.
Sure. But let's just say me. I'm not an enterprise GitHub. Okay. Yeah. I create repos and I make them private. Ever since Microsoft bought GitHub, I can have private repos for free. I don't have to pay for it.
No, that's different though. That still lives on their servers. GitHub Enterprise.
It lives on people's servers.
It's hosted on company servers.
They still have access to it.
They could. We don't know. But if they did find out that they had access to it, I think it would be a much bigger lawsuit, and this could involve a lot more serious penalties.
Yeah, because there's some big companies, bigger than Google, who could sue Google, right? So
if Apple's using GitHub and then they find out Microsoft's doing it,
the bad things would happen.
Yeah, but it's crazy. Well, one of the things I always thought it was funny because when Microsoft got GitHub, they also bought LinkedIn.
Right.
And I always said that with these two companies acquired, Microsoft technically knows if a company is going down. If it's a startup, let's just say you have a startup, you're on GitHub and you're on LinkedIn. Microsoft not only knows the employees that are working at your company, it knows how much code is being contributed by them. And then it also knows now if you are suddenly bleeding talent and if your code quality and also the amount of commits are going down, whether you're a company that's going down or up.
That's true. Actually, besides that's probably much larger scale, probably more important. But I was just thinking, if they have that data, and they know that one through LinkedIn, maybe you're fine. Like I'm just saying, I'm talking on an individual level now. They know you're being lazy at work. You're doing a lot less commits, you personally.
Oh yeah.
And they now know that you're searching for other jobs. Like they know you're gonna leave way before maybe even you know you're gonna leave. They'll be like, this guy's getting lazy here. He's starting to spend a bit more time on LinkedIn. He's, maybe thinking about switching. They'll know you're ready to jump ship before you do.
Oh yeah, 100%. Right. That's what I'm saying. They'll know individually that this guy's leaving, but they'll know as a company that if they're going down or up, if more people leaving or more people coming in.
Dude, honestly, I bet, dude, if there's some guy at Google who has access to both these APIs somehow, LinkedIn and that.
No, not Google, Microsoft.
I said Microsoft, who has access to both those things. He can create a simple app that just feeds them what companies are doing well or not and invest. I'm just saying.
He could. I mean,
I'm not even sure if that's insider trading because he's an outsider. He's an outsider with a lot of access.
A lot of access. It is crazy how much data they actually have on. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
It is very fascinating,
yeah. Anyway, AI is exciting for sure, and it's making, I don't know, I'm excited. I'm making stuff. I'm optimistic.
Everybody should be making stuff if you haven't tried it.
Yeah, 100%. Just go make something. You have an idea? Oh my God, this would be so nice. I've had this tool or a calendar that did this or something that automated this. Look, I work at the hospital, and for me, this is just for my personal use case, HIPAA compliant. I've created a full-on note-taking app for myself. For anyone who's been, who's worked in the medical field, you do a lot of pre-charting on a patient, and then you round on that patient, and you come back. And a lot of people, if you're good, you can have the entire note ready and done before you even see the patient. Typically, it's not, and you edit it according to what you learn from the patient. If there's something changed, something critical, of course, you mention that in your note because you want to have accurate notes. But everything, I click a button, I can sit there and sip tea, and it finishes it in 45 seconds. It's great. That was the first thing I started making with AI recently. And then I've just made 10 other things since then, small things, very useful. Okay, so I was doing this. I was watching Salahuddin Ayyubi, the Turkish show, right? Has some of the actors from Ertugrul. So I was watching that.
Oh, has actors from Ertugrul?
Yeah, the main guy, Salahuddin, is Tuktekin or no?
Tuktekin,
yes. Is whatever, that guy.
Yeah, Tuktekin.
Yeah.
That's what he is.
So he's Tuktekin Bey. Anyway, so I was watching Ertugrul, but here's the thing. So now, and I had subscribed to Tabby, so it was being released with English subtitles on YouTube via Tabby. But the actual Turkish episodes are being released on YouTube, full HD, earlier than that, but without subs. And so I'm like, look, I can just watch those, and I just add subs on it. And then there was these people, of course, these pirated websites online, who would get the YouTube version freely available. They would take that and they would add their own English subtitles and put it up on their website so that the English audience can watch it early and with English subs. But they would sub it themselves. But it would be hard-coded subs. Hard-coded subs means the subtitles aren't in a separate SRT file that you add on and it overlays. Rather, these subtitles are hard-coded into the video. So I created an app full on myself using it when I say myself, but using LLM tools that looked at these video files. I just took a video, put it into it, and I told it exactly what the subtitles would be, like the bottom third of the screen, and it would parse those and it would do basically OCR, right, optical character recognition, and create subtitle files for me. And then I would do this, and then I'd be able to watch like a week or two early because Tabby was so slow. No, I didn't feel like stealing.
But how fast is that?
It would take like, I don't know. All right. Unfortunately, we got cut off there a little bit. I'll just end with basically it takes about 15 minutes to run through that subtitle thingy. But anyway, we did want to end on nowadays because, like, at least us two, we play video games and stuff every now and again. And well, what are you playing?
We kind of just want to end on like what we're playing, doing, whatever it is.
Yeah,
right?
something interesting.
So yeah, I mean, recently we got into the board game Root. You have it back there, like all 4.
Let me see if I can grab that. We play on this.
This is the expansion.
Very table. This is one of the expansions.
It's one of the expansions.
But Root,
Root is a great game. Yeah, it's like it reminds me of not really StarCraft, but asymmetric, right? So there's like factions. Everybody has a different goal, plays extremely differently. Yet, overall, like what everybody, all the small things everybody can do is the same, but they have just a completely different feel to every faction. So it's fun, just like mixing and matching factions. We do a faction draft. It's a great game.
As a separate aside, when it comes to board games, I'll say this. I do prefer... Lately, I've been finding there's a lot of luck in board games, meaning you can't, right? Because board games are one of two ways.
They're inherently...
Yeah, they're inherently... You can minimize luck. The more luck modifiers you have, that's fine. But either it's going to be cards. You're drawing cards or playing cards or have cards. I mean, there's a luck at what card you draw. Or there's dice. You roll dice and there's some luck there. Or some other way of luck. You spin something, you roll something, you draw something, okay? There is always a luck. And often in combat systems, whether it's games like Root or whatever, there's always dice. And then you can modify that luck by, this, that, the other.
Well, the idea behind Root, like the actual idea is it is very balanced, but the balance comes from the players themselves.
That, I would say it's one of those things. Look, any individual game, I'll say a game like Root, right? Any individual game is going to be lucky, okay? But on average, over a period of time, the more skilled players should win more often.
No, I'm saying the Root is like, it's not exactly, because there are clear unbalances between factions, right? And some factions play against other factions. So
it's not as balanced like StarCraft.
No, it's not like that, right? So there is clearly, but the way Root balances itself is that you essentially should be hunting the leader. The player balance themselves, right? We all hunt one leader, we weaken him, then go after the other leader, weaken him, go after the other leader. Yeah. And that's kind of the way it's supposed to self-balance in the game, right?
Kind of like MTG.
Yeah, exactly like MTG. You go after the leader. If you keep going after the guy who's weak, because it's easy points or whatever, the one guy's going to get carried away, the guy you're not policing goes away, and then the guy who you keep killing, he's going to have a terrible time.
But the point I was getting at is this. So in general, when it comes to board games, I prefer video games because video games have there's some luck in them, whether you get a critical chance, strike, whatever, right? There's some luck in those two, but for the most part, they're pure skill. Whether it's Rocket League or Counter-Strike or League of Legends or StarCraft, it's usually pure skill. Very little luck involved. You're not drawing cards or rolling dice, but there's something to be said when you play on a tabletop. You and me sitting across from each other, and you're right here, and you're chatting, you're drinking, you're eating, whatever, right? It's akin to like a LAN party of the olden days, but no one really has LAN parties anymore. And so now you're just playing a board game, you sit around, and family's over, and you have a good time. I think for that reason, I enjoy. It's good.
To me, is the reason board games are great is because I haven't found a really good game in a while to really play together. We're just older, and I guess we don't have the time to put in. We tried Diablo 4. Honestly, it didn't last that long. It was fine. It just didn't give us the same thing that we were when we were much younger playing Diablo 2. So a lot of these games just don't hit it for me anymore. The only game that recently hit that was we were playing on computers was on PC was Hexarchy, which is a very good game.
Last Ramadan, unfortunately.
But we had a
You know
good
what happened?
Ramadan, but it was
It
part
was
of
a
it.
good Ramadan, but that was a part of it. But the reason that happened, and we realized this later, I'm like, why are we like we never played this much together ever? But all our schedules, me, my partner, Sohaib, all the schedules were in perfect sync.
Because of
Right?
Ramadan.
Because of Ramadan. We're waking up for suhoor at the same time. We're staying awake at the same time. We're taking naps at the same time. We're praying at the same time. We meet each other at the masjid at the same time. We're doing Qiyamul Layl at the same time. Everything, our schedules are so in line that for us to carve out an hour of time together, which is typically impossible with our schedules and wives and kids, it just happened automatically.
Yeah.
Everyone has these hours, like a couple hours in the middle of the day, we're like, you know what, let's just chill. And we chill together. It was wonderful.
But Hexarchy itself is like a board game.
It's a board game.
It's a board game. So I just feel like the board games, there's a lot of cool board games too. They make a lot of cool board games, and I think you get to sit in front of each other, talk to each other, and I think that's a good experience. And the only problem with board games is they take a while. They're
take
long.
a long.
Like I say
time.
now I realize it doesn't matter what board. If it's like gonna be an interesting board game, it's gonna take 2 hours.
Yeah,
at least.
We used to like hate on Monopoly and games like Risk back in the day. Remember, because they were so long. But nowadays,
Risk took like 4 hours.
Yeah, and Monopoly would be a very long game too, but it would be like 2 hours tops, like Monopoly, even if you're playing slowly. Nowadays, these board games like Root, like you're talking 3 hours.
Yeah.
If you're really efficient, you have a bunch of people who know exactly what they're doing, and you're doing it on point, maybe 2. But you're playing 4-player games, and it takes 3 hours at least.
Yeah,
which is a large chunk of time to be spending on a board game.
I think it's fine because if you played any other game online, it would just be you can do like several like Deadlock. We were playing Deadlock for a bit.
Yeah.
Like how much time?
I mean, I played an unfortunate amount.
No, but how much time would be a single match be?
30 to 40 minutes, 35 minutes on average, I would say.
Yeah, but then just starting time too, so like 45 minutes.
I'd say 40 minutes. Most games, on average, including start time. Start time is actually very quick for Deadlock, I would say.
Yeah, but I just feel like I enjoy Root more, honestly.
Yeah.
So the thing is, that's what we were playing. I mean, just this segment's supposed to be just quickly what we're playing. But
but anyway.
We're just analyzing games now. But yeah, we were playing Root. I still have a Game Pass subscription for some reason. Even though maybe I should cancel it. So whenever something comes out on Game Pass, I try it out for a bit. Even though I'll probably never finish it, but I'm trying Avowed. It's an Obsidian RPG. It's pretty good. It's fine.
Yeah, I got my Game Pass subscription when I got the RG Ally, thinking, you know what, this is gonna be great. And there's so many single player games I always wanted to try. I realized I'm not a single player kind of guy. I need to play a multiplayer game with people over Discord. That's the only way I really enjoy it. I can literally count maybe on 2 hands at most. Probably only need 6 fingers. The number of single player games I beat by myself without you.
Zelda.
When we were kids,
You beat Zelda and stuff, right?
I did, but
to a degree.
Yeah, I usually finish the story and then I stop. But when we were young, we played a bunch of single player games together.
Yeah.
Usually he'd be playing it, I'd be watching, cheerleading him on. He's 4 years older than I am. But since that time, I think there's a very limited number of games I've played. Deus Ex, Zelda.
I play them.
Hades recently.
But I might get into them because these games are like 40, 60 hour long. I might get into them and probably stop at the 10-hour mark maximum.
Here's the thing, games like Zelda to play to completion takes forever. You can beat the story very quick if you wanted to.
It is such a cool game, though. I wish I could play it to completion, but it's impossible.
It just takes a lot of time. It's a big grind.
But yeah, I mean, that's what we're playing. I don't know. Are you playing anything unique?
Hades. I've been playing Hades. Even that was a couple weeks ago. Nowadays, nothing. I've been coding for fun. That's the honest truth. When I have free time, I'm coding. And it's fantastic.
I play right before bed. In bed.
No. When bed is the last thing me and my wife go to, and at that point is just lights off, phones away.
Maybe for
done.
it's like
we're not in bed very long.
I know if she's doing something else, and I can get to bed first. Until she comes to bed, then I'll just kind of play.
Oh really? No, she's always in bed before me usually.
No, I get to bed first. And then I have my RGL, so I just play on that. But yeah, I mean, I think I like the setup. I think we'll continue it. We probably will invest now in a proper setup with better lighting, actual lights.
We're gonna make a small studio of sorts down the road, inshallah.
Down the road,
maybe a couple weeks, maybe a couple months out. But we'll get there. I think we can have better production quality. This time I'm recording in 4K. I don't think I'm gonna release the footage in 4K. It's probably still be 1080, but
It should be sharper.
hopefully it's sharper. I'm just not liking the sharpness of our videos, despite investing in a camera and all this stuff. So we'll see how it goes.
But
All right. Yeah.
that's
Jazakallah khairan for listening. That's it for today. Hopefully it's a bit more chillish vibe we're going for. We're brothers anyway, so we're tend to be in sync. But yeah,
But we'll try doing the setup again where with the laptops and we can like look at exactly what we're talking about. I think
I think it's good.
For it,
Yeah, for sure.
Sounds good. Okay.
All right. Jazakallah khairan.
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa
Assalamu alaikum.
barakatuh.